Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for news stories from Yellowcat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. What incident at your job made you so mad that you left it without any notice? Part 4. I was working on a government contract that was clearly not going to be successful. The website for which we were creating the software had never worked on a major software project before. But there's FU if it wasn't invented. They effing hated us because we came from their rival website, which actually had a lot of software development experience. They did in fact stop by, mingle in, gave us the donuts from last week. That was our only communication together. They gave us terrible directions to the restrooms and had no idea where to sit or how to use the computers. We were creating a system for distributing data in real time. The GUI was being developed by another local team. With just a day's notice, my team was tasked with providing management with an end-to-end proof of concept. Could you please provide us with a demo from the GUI team? Can we speak with them, please? No. When we questioned a man we saw working on the GUI, he said it was something else. We took our complaints up the management chain, and the manager of the opposing team, who was also in our chain, threatened to pull us by giving us a low rating. Thus, my colleague and I managed to pull off a miraculous demo. When we arrive home, my colleague resigns. I move to another department. After 3 weeks, I receive a call from my boss informing me that I'm being transferred back. I'm being transferred permanently to the other website. I contacted my friend to look for a new job after quitting right away. The entire contact was canceled 3 months later. My friends were all screwed over. P.S. For all you A-hats out there who are reading this and still can't figure out how the data distribution team pulled off a demo with just 1 day's notice and no GUI, your GUI code was stolen by us. Your administrator refused to speak with us and was just as shady as the rest of you. He would simply point to the piece of paper on which he had taped the root password for each machine. During the dot-com bubble, I was a web developer for an online realtor. Let's just say the consultants assisting us with the platform switch weren't exactly the best of the best. We were working 60 to 70-hour work weeks for several months leading up to Christmas. When I arrived one morning in November, the CMS had been globally reset, erasing months' worth of work that our entire development team had put into it. Because our CEO was back on CNBC that morning, the office was buzzing when I arrived one day, but I couldn't really care because I was too busy working. My supervisor, the CIO, approaches me at 10:30 a.m. and says, "We need you to build a new web store. When do you need it?" The CEO has informed all CNBC viewers that it will be available tomorrow. After one of the craziest days of my career, I finished it around 11 p.m. A few days later, while I was waiting on the VP who had called me in, the CEO would chastise me for sharing a story with a colleague. And so, the stage is set. The week before Thanksgiving, the CIO is having one-on-one meetings with developers in this small conference room one morning. My friend tells me I'm next as he emerges with a face long enough to surf. My boss tells me when I get in that I'm not doing my share and that he needs me to get to work on getting X and Y done. As previously mentioned, we work 60 to 70-hour work weeks for pay. I have to leave the office at around 2 in the morning and get my computer by 8:30 every day. The CEO used to work in retail and I also work weekends. I sat there in shock. That's what happens when you don't get enough sleep. After that conversation, I returned to my desk and attempted to code for a while, but I couldn't shake the thought. I went to my boss's office right before lunch and said, "I've been thinking about what you said." "Yes, and?" I said I quit and placed the pager they gave me on his desk. In our meeting, he quickly changed his mind after I chastised him about the company's management. That year's Thanksgiving was a little tense and we spent Christmas more sparingly on gifts, but the first week of December I started a new job with a 20% pay increase in benefits. Being physically threatened. This occurred at 2 different jobs, and I believe that my personality makes me appear vulnerable. I sound too nice and insecure because I struggle with social anxiety, especially when I start a new job. Others trot all over me. I'm putting an effort into it. Here's a tale. I was working at a restaurant from opening to closing 7 days a week. Since my relationship with my boyfriend is the only thing I have going for me, I asked my boss to take 1 day off work so I could see him. Sure, she replied. All right, good. How I behaved at work. I did other people's work while working nonstop. I never stood around. I was her hardest worker, I admit it. One day she said, I have to work because I have jury duty the next day, even though I was waitressing and also assisted with bussing and bartending. I only had 1 day off this week. My boyfriend and I had plans. She freaked out when I said, oh, I already made plans though. Though I can't recall what she said, I asked, well, did you ask anybody else? I'm aware that she didn't, and angrily exclaimed, yes, I did ask everybody else. You see, you have no idea who I am, and there will be repercussions, blah, blah, blah. In brief, we're both Italian, and there are 2 varieties in New Jersey, the trashy one and the more cultural ones. She was a filthy person. We also know of a few individuals connected to or involved in the mafia here. I was to investigate further when I heard statements like that. She's also aware of my residence. We'd always gotten along well, so I was confused when she kept picking on me. The following day, I received questions from customers about special requests that I was unaware of. As the grown-up, I approached my bee of a boss to inquire, but she ignored me and avoided looking me in the eyes. I'm like, yes, okay, you'd rather screw your customers than be an effing adult? I have someone to cover when I'm at jury duty, she texted me later that day. Yeah, no S, because you asked me first, thinking I'll just drop everything for you, I replied. I was gonna text her after I quit and say something like, consider this a consequence of how you treat your hardest worker, but my boyfriend warned me not to give her any more credit. I still wish I had. I abruptly resigned with no warning and a full schedule. I laughed when I texted her. I now turn off the restaurant whenever I drive by. There, she struggled with anger management. People alerted me to her. I asked her, can I have the coupon code? Because I needed to know something for work. I was a marketing coordinator, and this crazy person was a 40-year-old cashier. She said she was going to kick my A. I was really confused. She would always act this way, so I could never finish my work. I lived for about 4 months. Despite knowing my boss there claimed she couldn't afford to fire her, she didn't mind that I was leaving. She felt bad and told me I could leave that day, so I did. I still have 2 weeks left. One day someone spray painted a D on her car. She yelled at me and said, sorry, someone spray painted a D on my car, and she sent my coworker the pic. I was dying. So she must be a psycho to everyone, clearly. Homeowners, share your story of encountering a moronic neighbor, or HOA, Part 4. God, where should I even begin? Because everyone in my neighborhood was so rigid about everything, I used to refer to it as N-Town. My garage door wasn't closing all the way because it was broken. It was probably barely perceptible, hovering only an inch off the ground. I made immediate contact with someone to have it fixed, and they promised to come by in 3 days. Even though my HOA knew my garage was broken, they still threatened and fined me every day for not being closed all the way. Additionally, we had a rent-a-cop security guard who was full of BS and would always pick on me in the pool. To enter the swimming area, you needed to present your fingerprint. He would single me out and ask to leave the spa and confirm that I had access whenever I was in there with other people. Do you think I took someone's thumb to get in here? I asked. Or do you just enjoy staring at me while I walk around in my bathing suit? It's not as though using someone else's key would have allowed me entry. To enter, all you had to do was scan your thumb. He did it about 6 times, and after the 3rd time, I was like, okay, dude, you know who I am by now. Occasionally, he would ask for my address to confirm that I was a resident, to which I would reply, yeah, no. We received harassment if we had our holiday decorations up the day after the holiday had ended. We would be fined if our trash cans were left outside for longer than 24 hours, including the night before trash day. Families whose children were making loud splashes in the pool would also receive a warning. Needless to say, I don't live there anymore. Our HOA's president was your average retired military man who enjoyed giving commands. With a video camera in hand, he would prowl the neighborhood, harassing those too terrified to stand up for themselves. For him, any infraction, no matter how minor, was a grave personal insult. Because the trucks were parked beyond the guest vehicle designated parking space, they actually took UPS to court. Yes, delivery trucks are bigger than parking spaces the size of a Honda Fit. Well done, genius! And the DHOA prevailed! Our condo's driveway was absolutely tiny. I'm speaking in 3 feet. It was against the rules to wash your car on the street. I could have part of my small car outside to keep the water off the items in the garage if I angled it just so. It seemed that the bumper was about half an inch above the curb. The woman on the other side of the street caught me red-handed, and the president quickly appeared with a camera to capture my humiliation and tell me to move my car deeper into the garage. I was relieved to leave. Not me, but the neighbor next door. His roof was replaced with darker shingles than before, and his entire house was recently repainted. After everything was completed, he got an envelope with a letter on official HOA letterhead taped to his door about a week later. According to the letter, he painted his house a color that the Homeowners Association had not approved. In addition, his shingles were darker than what the HOA permitted. He was ordered to have the roof completely replaced with shingles that were slightly lighter and to repaint his house in its original color as soon as possible. If he had any questions about the aforementioned, he was to call the HOA president at the number given. Enraged, my neighbor grabbed his cell phone and called the president right away. The president picked up. After a protracted dispute over the HOA president's rigidity, my neighbor made a threat to kick him in the A. The president said he would kick his A in his car and be there in 30 minutes. My neighbor went and waited patiently, pacing in and out of his driveway. I went outside, stood next to him, and inquired about the situation. He was on the verge of losing his cool after telling me everything. After a half hour or so, he was in shock that the man had not shown up and was calling him names like coward and chicken ass. At that point, I informed him that the whole time it was me, and I was merely playing a joke on him. He was undecided whether to laugh or kick me in the A. He was simultaneously ecstatic and relieved. I was laughing uncontrollably. I left a note in his door, gave him the number to call that he didn't know, and covered my voice to sound like the jerk president of the HOA. He still has not gotten me back to this day. I detest overly passionate HOAs. About 13 years ago, my parents moved into the neighborhood where they currently reside. There was no Homeowners Association, HOA, or if there was, it had few simple rules. Then, 3 or 4 years ago, we began receiving letters in the mail about very stringent new HOA rules, such as no satellite dishes in front of the house, or no cars parked in front if the driveway is empty, or trash cans must be out on the curb at a certain time and must be taken back in a certain time. Because it seems that people are able to simply be so watchful of the trash cans on the curbs and don't work. Our grass was too long, a city official once told us, but it was nothing to worry about because, presumably, someone with a lot of free time had called the city to report all the neighbors. Then the renovations and block parties began. The HOA began hosting these block parties each season and consistently using the same suppliers. One year, the neighborhood signage was changed, and I have to admit it did look nicer than it had. The common area was a sort of paved area that was added at the entrance. Then they altered the signing once more earlier this year. The font is horrible and has nothing in common with the neighborhood's general theme. Horrible RGB LED lighting was also added by them. The common area was then the subject of additional construction. It should be noted that this is not within the neighborhood proper, but rather at the entrance, which is close to a well-known town running trail. Some residents of the neighborhood, however, didn't appreciate these most recent modifications, nor the fact that they were made without first consulting the homeowners and with funds from the HOA. Then the legal action started. An injunction was filed against the HOA on the grounds that money was being embezzled. The HOA president reportedly planned to build rows of barbecue pits in the common area for some effing reason, and there were concrete slabs ready to start on it. People complained that the recent renovations were unnecessary. Additionally, many expressed dissatisfaction over the excessive nature of the block parties and the HOA president's habit of inviting his entire family. He spent a lot of the Nextdoor app bragging about how he turned the HOA around from the depressing state it was in and other things. Additionally, he announced his resignation through the Nextdoor app, saying he was giving the HOA to a business so that we could all go screw ourselves or something similar. A week or so later, he simply got up and moved. It turns out that the treasurer was residing in his cousin's home or something similar rather than even being a homeowner. Additionally, he somehow misplaced the HOA checkbook. It's all a bit mysterious. In any case, the homeowners are discussing forming a new HOA after the legal matters are resolved, and the HOA is currently frozen. They've all but agreed that it'll be very little, mainly consisting of mowing the common area's grass and other such tasks. Renovations and parties are over. If you want to watch the part 3, click the link here. We're very, very glad to see you all in the comments again. Many, many thanks for your support.